Today is May 30th, 1996. Our survivor is Moshe Bergman. I'm Lori Fine. We're in Brooklyn, New York, the United States of America, and our language is English. Today is May 30th, 1996. Our survivor is Moshe Bergman, or Moshe Bergman. I'm Lori Fine. We're in Brooklyn, New York, the United States of America, and our language is English. Hi, could you please tell us your name with the spelling?
My name is Moshe Bergman, M-U-R-R-A-Y, B-E-R-G-M-A-N, Bergman.
What was your name at birth?
My name at birth was Moshe, and I was born in...
Did you ever have any other names, any nicknames?
No.
Could you tell us your birth date?
My birthday is March 21, 1922,
How old are you now?
74.
Could you tell us the town and the country where you were born?
I was born in Turkey. My mother,
Could you tell us how to spell that?
T-U-R-K-A,
And in which country is that?
in Poland.
Could you tell us about the town
The town of...
where you grew up? You want to make the distinction for us?
I grew up in Boryslaw. And
When did you leave Turkey?
well, my mother went there to give birth because I was the first child. So she went to her parents' house to give birth. I had the bridge there. Right after the bridge, I guess she came back to Boryslaw. I don't remember that, but I'm guessing it. She came back right, and I grew up all my life in Boryslaw,
So
except being in the yeshivas out of Boryslaw.
So what did the town look like?
Boryslaw was a pretty large town according to the Polish cities there, not measuring against America, you know, where we have millions of people. But the province, to say, or the voivodstvo of Lvov, it was probably the third or the fourth biggest city in the province. At first was Lvov, then was other cities, another one or two, and then was Boryslaw. It was not a tiny city. It was a pretty good-sized city with Jews, and the Jews have been probably, I would say, 40%. The population was between 40 and 50,000, which was a large city in those countries.
What did it look like? What did the area look like?
The area, this was on the foot of the Carpathian Mountains. We had oil wells, and it was parnus, or making a living, was a little easier there than in the other places. It was plenty poor people. Don't mean that everybody was rich, but there was industry, there was a little more panusa there. So people moved there. It was a young city. It was not a very old city like Polish cities, 1,000 years or so. But since people came there from other towns to make a living. So that's how the city grew, and very rapidly, very fast.
What type of businesses were there? What types of business were there in the town?
Well, they've been the wholesalers of food and manufacturers, I would say, dry goods stores, food stores, selling to the people that worked in these oil wells. And the oil wells had industry. In other words, if it was their oil wells, they have been workshops to serve all these oil wells, like refineries, and these refineries needed carpenters and metal workers and shops that they made all these things, and people worked there in these places. And of course, Jews came there to look for jobs before my times, and this is how the city grew.
Did your house have an exact address? Your house, did it have an address, a number?
My house had a number, yeah. It was 24 Zielinskiego, a Polish name. And other cities, other small cities, didn't have names, the streets. This proves already that it was an industrial city with names and numbers.
What did the house look like?
The house that we lived in. Well, we didn't have our own house. We have not been well enough. My father was, I would say, on the lower middle, not well enough to buy, lower middle class, I would say, not to buy a house on their own. So we lived in an apartment. We had a one-bedroom apartment, and we slept in the living room. The children, the parents slept in the bedroom, and a kitchen, a big kitchen, not like we have in America, small kitchens. We had a big kitchen, and the whole life was going on in the kitchen, a table, and chairs, and we ate there, and Shabbos, Yom Tov, and we lived there, nice and quiet, and so to say happily, but the Poles didn't let us live very happy. We had a little dry goods store that my father and my mother worked together. My father did mostly, he was a learned man. He sat in the Besmellish and studied Gemara. And did
What's your
the
father's
buying.
name? Your father's name?
My father's name was Yaakov Hirsch. He did the purchasing for the store, and my mother mostly sold it to the people in the store. So it was just laid out in such a way that the window of the shul where he learned faced the front door of our store. So he stood up and looked all the time through the window to see if there are customers. If there are customers, he left the shul and went to help my mother. And his customers have not been very often, so he has been in the shul lots of times there. He was a learned man.
When you think back to him, what memory comes to mind?
Well, he was a devoted father. He was pretty strict. He brought us up he was a Hasidic Yid.
What sort of chassid was he? What sect?
Belzer Chassid. And he brought us up the same way that he taught, making Belzer Chassidim out of us. And life was a little harder for us than for other children, because the other children could mingle with other people, and we have been dressed different. So we have had it everything harder than anybody else. We means the few people that we've been a minority Hasidic people in this city, being dressed the same way. So anybody could see us that we are Jews, and we are different Jews. So I would remember a little episode. I was walking from the store. My mother closed the store. I was walking from the store with my mother, just I would say a block or so, not far, not too much walking. Behind us have been going 2 or 3 Polish. We called them shkutzim, or students. One had a baseball in his hand. And he just saw me for no reason. I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. For no reason, he hit me over here, over the head. My mother started screaming and crying, and they walked away. They didn't even run away. Here, if somebody does something like this, he would run away, not to be caught. But they had been Poles, or were crying, or we don't know who they've been. My mother came home. She put some cold water to my head, and it went away. And this is the life that we left, that we felt, that was going on in this Poland between the 2 wars, when I was a child of this 10 years, 8 years, something like that.
Could you tell us about your mother?
Well, my mother she was a great tzedakis. In other words, she was very good-hearted. She shared whatever she had. She shared with other people, which we didn't have too much, but whatever she had, she shared with other people. And as far as education is concerned, educating the children, she would rather not be as strict as my father, to having us dress different and be exposed and look different. She would rather go a little bit easier. But, in those days, who was the boss? The father was the boss, and whatever he wanted, she went along with it. So this was going on. And
could you tell us her name and her maiden name?
Her name was Sarah. Her maiden name was Klugman. She was also from Turkey. I said it before, mentioned before. And by the age of 13, till 13, my father was a little balabus in a cheder, I would say, that they used to have a cheder. Where the children had, here they would call it a yeshiva. It was a grammar school that we learned mostly Gemara. And since I didn't even go to a public school because I was different, there have been a few like me. I wasn't be the only one, but a minority. So she took a tutor to teach me Polish. And
Why did she do that?
well, we had to know the language, and we had to know, we had to be grown up and know where we live. By the age of 13, after my bar mitzvah, my father decided to send me to Belz. Belz was about 200 kilometers away. It was about a trip for, I would say it would take, leaving 8 o'clock in the morning with changing trains. I came 8 o'clock at night. It took a long time. We sent up, we've been going there, I say me and some other boys from the same town. We have been leaving before Rosh Hashanah, means to go for all the high holidays, being with the rabbis there, and staying over there through Shavuos, which means the whole winter and a part of the spring. And for Shavuos, we went home, and this was our vacation. In vacation time, we still did learn in our cities.
Did you go home for Pesach?
No, Pesach we've been by the rabbi. And this was going for about, I started 35, and I was 13, 36, 37, 38, 39. And I would have been gone further on. But you know what happened in 39, and this stopped the whole bit.
Could I ask you if you have any memory of your grandparents?
I had my father's name was Shimon. Him I remember. He was also a very strict Hasidic Yid. So my father grew up his way, and he brought up his children his way. So this is how we have been three brothers, and all three of us, we've been growing the same way. Then came 1939.
Could you tell me about your brothers and sisters?
Sisters I didn't have. We had a brother, Bale, who was 2 years younger than I was. And I had a brother, Isaac, that I'll talk later about him probably. And he was 6 years younger than me, which means he was born 28. My brother was born 24. I was born 22. This is the siblings that I had.
What was a typical day like for you?
You mean between the wars?
Before the war.
Before the war means between the wars. We had a First World War and a Second World War. So between the wars, my typical day was I would get up in the morning. And I would go even to a mikveh before I davened in the morning. This was a normal thing for Hasidic people. And it's a matter of fact that the first time, we had two times the enjoyments invaded us. The first time when they came into us, they had been patrolling cities, riding motorcycles. I was going from the mikveh with wet pies. And somebody approaches me and says, Moshe, we guys, where are you going? The Germans are walking in the streets. We have been so not knowing what they are, what animals they are, what they are, that I walked home slowly. I didn't even run away. I had a mind to see how they look like. You see, they ran away, but fortunate enough, they didn't last. The first time, they didn't last too long. I'll probably talk about it later.
How would you describe yourself as a young person?
I was a healthy young person, and I would say, according to my father's wishes, I was a very good student, and I obeyed whatever I was supposed to, and I would say a masmid, means I didn't waste time. I was learning. I had good rabbis, the teachers that taught me, and they liked me. And if not for the war, if not the change of life that happened to all the Jews in Europe, I would be maybe somebody else. But it so happened that it worked out this way.
What were your actual plans for the future?
Our plan for the future was probably, if Poland would be Poland that it was, the future was not very bright for people that never have not have secular educations, which we didn't have, because the Hasidim, they just brought up their children in one way, to be Hasidim. So the future would be probably I would maybe be a merchant or would get a job as a rabbi or something like that. But something happened in the middle of my growing up. They changed the whole world of mine.
Do you remember any of your friends or activities you would do together?
Well, we didn't play balls like they play here. We didn't do that. Activities means Yom Tovim, that we got together, we sang,
Do you remember any songs?
Geschmack, as they say here, and we've been only going in one direction, to become Hasidim.
Do you remember any of the songs you would sing?
No, wouldn't sing a song. I'm not a singer now. But we sang, we davened together, and we learned together. The summertime, we walked sometimes, and we didn't have too much parks in Boryslaw to walk, but we've been afraid even to walk, because we look so different. And these Gentiles, who have been, whether Ukrainians or Poles, we have been a scapegoat for them. They as soon as they saw us, stones have started to fly. And we lived in a small area, so we didn't even walk outside of the city too much. While the secular Jewish people had a little easier, because for them, they had to be faced to be recognized. Us, they recognized from the back. We have these long jackets, the long and payas around, and it was easy to aim at us, a stone. It was a normal thing for them to do it, very normal, and they had it for a mitzvah to do it probably. So that's how the Hasidic Bochum, Bochum, means the young people, have been a little more harder, had a little more harder life than the students. Some Jewish people went to secular schools, to gymnasiums. They had it a little easier. First of all, their language was much better. Our Polish was not as good, although we've been born in Poland, but we lived in a Yiddish life. At home we speak Yiddish, and the learning, of course, was very much in Yiddish. So even the language was a little barrier between a Hasidic bocher against a secular bocher who went through secular education. This was the Cheder time. I'm talking Boryslaw was the Cheder time, which was until, I would guess, say until 13 years. And then Boryslaw was to me only a few months between Shavuos and the high holidays, which is a few months only. And the rest of the time I spent in Belz. As I said, all those years with my friends. They have been all the same kind of people from other cities, not only from Boryslaw. We had been there probably about 200 Bochum like us. And they came from Krakow and from Lvov and from Drohowicz and from Stry. These are cities in around Galicia. And even Hungarians came us a lot, and from Czechoslovakia. So we had a good life among ourselves. We have been happy among ourselves. We didn't have to go out and see other people, play ball with other people. They have been different people from different towns. So we had a happy life there, so to say happy, except food was not enough, not at all enough. But we managed. We had a kitchen there that was run by has been called the Rosh HaChaber, means a certain person has been supplying, collecting money and supplying food for us, for the 200 or so people that we ate there. We slept in private houses. We didn't have a dormitory. We slept a few boys in one room. The sanitation was not very high, you can imagine that.
Did you have a bathroom in the building?
Hardly. Had to go out of the building. And we've been happy. In other words, if these things wouldn't come along, we would be surviving. We would be living our way of life, and we would be happy the way we lived. We didn't have any ambitions to become millionaires. Nobody was a millionaire. It was very, you didn't see him there around.
What was your relationship with the Belzer Rebbe?
Well, the Belzer Rebbe was a very holy man. The relationship with him was that Shabbos, Yom Tov, he came in to daven with us.
What did he look like?
Even weekdays. He was a very thin, short man. And he was, well, I'm not even competent enough to talk of him. Because if you talk of him, we're talking of, like, to my beliefs, you talk of somebody who is a malach. I would explain it into an angel. And he was not a Rebbe direct learning with us, because we didn't even have an approach to him to talk to him. Just once in a while, we went into his room where he gave us a brucha. We had a Rebbe Rebbe was a teacher that we called him Rebbe. His name was Reb Mechel. And he was there steady and learning, teaching all these buchim that came from all around Europe.
What sort of bracha would you get from the Rebbe?
Well, what bracha would we want? We would ask to be healthy and to have a good head and to be able to learn, to absorb the Torah and to absorb the Torah, to understand the Torah and to absorb the Torah. And then the Rebbe would see everyone. He would shake his hand with all the buchim. And before when we came, we went in, we shook his hand too. He knew approximately, not everybody he knew, because they've been changing every year, different boys, different buchim. Me, he knew because I was there for so many years, he knew me, and I was very proud if he called me the Boryslaw. It means he's from Boryslaw. He called me the Boryslaw, and I heard that. I know that I was happy for weeks that when he was sat at the table, he said the Boryslaw. This was a great thing to me. And this is how our life was going on until the war.
Would you ever go to him for advice?
Advice? What did I need advice? I was no businessman. I didn't do any business. I didn't expect to make any money in these years. I would go for advice to tell me, have atzloch and you are learning. We wanted to learn. We wished to have atzloch.
Could you tell us about Shabbos in your home?
Shabbos in our home was, well, like I would say, very, very, very observant, like all the from Hasidic homes. The food was always, also as I said before, we have not been of the richest people, but we have not been very poor people, even not poor people. In other words, my father and my mother together in the stove worked so hard that we had always food. And the Shabbos was full of Teufel, full of Shabbos from bench left until after Shabbos. Was full. We felt the Shabbos is different. In other words, when the Shabbos came in, I felt that the day is another. It's not a day like a day. It's another day than other days. It's something. It's Shabbos. And then we knew that Shabbos is the Shemoshe Lakudish Baruch. This means God's name is Shabbos. Shabbos is Shabbos. So we also spent learning. What did we do except learning? And the tables have been enough food for Shabbos. It was enough. I mean, it was not luxury food, but it was enough.
What was Purim like?
Nothing special. Purim, I was in Belzert, I told you before.
What was it like in that town?
Well, the Rebbe, if he had a tish like all the Rebbes have tish, a tish means that people came around, and he had a tish, and he said Dibra Torah. And people danced, and people sang, and you heard him the Megillah. He read by himself the Megillah. Reading the Megillah, the rabbis here reading the Megillah was like being in Persia and seeing Esther and Achashverosh to us. Whatever the Amunim means, to believe in this rabbi was so great that it was something not to be missed and to remember till today. I do remember these days. That was taken away from me. I still feel that these things have been taken away from me. Although I'm not living the same life anymore, Hasidic, as you can see, that I was planted to be. But it's something to remember. I'm very proud of all those years that I spent there. And it proved that after we had all our problems and sores and whatever, I might talk later, also I was, according to certain secular people, they said I'm backgrounded because, look, these people are growing one way only. It came all these business I managed just to survive. With a lot of luck, of course, a lot of luck, but I came into all the other places. I was not falling back as far as they have been concerned, not at all. I could manage, I could work, I could hide, I could escape, I could do anything, just as well as they do. Also, I grew up in this belt, which these people that have not been growing this way, the secular people thought they are wasting their children. What are they going to be? They don't teach him Polish, they don't teach him science, they don't teach him whatever. And Baruch Hashem, I managed till today's days, I can match everybody, even today.
What was Pesach like?
Pesach was also bells. You're talking bells. I don't remember home. What was Pesach like? A Seder and matzahs, not too much matzahs, very little matzahs. Matzahs was an expensive commodity. A lot of potatoes. And the same thing, davening and learning. What do the yeshiva bucha do? What do they do? I think they do here the same thing, except they have a little, they play ball and they go places. We didn't have this privilege. We didn't go no places and we didn't play ball. But the yeshiva Borysław was the yeshiva Borysław.
Did you have newspapers or radio or telephone available?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, when I was in Belz, my connections to my family, home, was probably once a week a letter. No telephones. Once a week or maybe twice a month, 2 weeks a letter. And my father wanted to know how I'm progressing in learning. And he helped. In other words, whatever the supply of food was there from this kitchen that we ate, all of us. It was not enough. He himself did anything he could to send me a few zlotys every month. I had to pay for my place that I slept there, and some money separate, to buy some food, to live a little better, not to go very hungry. Too much food we never had. Too much food we never had.
Were you able to follow any of the current events?
Yeah, very much. We've been lively people. We knew what's going on. I mean, the radios we didn't have, but the city people, we knew that people came to the Rebbe especially with all their tours. They poured out on their heart what they had. So we knew what's going on in all the towns. And the current events means politics, what's going on, that Hitler is growing, whatever's doing the other side, more west. People had radios in the city, and we knew every day. We used to find out. I remember very well how sad it was when came the Anschluss, means when he came into Vienna. I remember the day. We knew it immediately for many reasons. One reason was that we had our Bochurim in Vienna too. So we've been talking, this name, Meilach, this name, Shmuel, they wouldn't come here anymore. Hitler is there. They wouldn't get out. They're locked in.
Today is May 30th, 1996, and our survivor is Moshe Bergman. Do you remember any pogroms?
Very much. Very much. Started number one. Well, maybe I should start 1939, before the pogrom,
Before the Germans.
Before the Germans, no, I don't remember pogroms. I mean, pogroms, I would say, German pogroms.
Do you remember any interaction or relationship with the non-Jews in the area?
Well, I remember, I'm trying to think, I remember the pogroms in Pshitik. I mean, other towns, not in our city. No, Pshitik was a city in Poland somewhere. And they made a pogrom, they killed Jews there. But I was little. Actually, the pogroms in Russia, this was all before my times. The SARS pogroms, and now, between the two wars, as I keep on saying, between means in the 30s, where I was a sort of a little mensch to know something already. I started 30, I was 80 years old. I actually don't remember. 30, 39, these 10 years. In our city was no pogroms. Well, we know beatings, they beatings, beat Poles have beaten Jews in the trains, throw them out of trains, anti-Semitism, and they didn't let us live. If my father had this little store that I was talking about, how to crush him, they gave him big taxes. You didn't pay taxes like here from your income. You file an income tax return. They came into the store, and they've been anti-Semites from their blood, and they brought these officials have been brought from Western Poland, from the Central Poland, not to know these people even how they deal with them in these little Yiddish towns. So they came into the stores, they looked at the merchandise that has been there, they figured out that every piece of merchandise costs so and so much, and it's being sold 5 times a year. Probably it wasn't probably sold through the year. But they figured, and according to their estimate, they estimated you how much money you make, and they taxed them according. And this was just a simple thing to get the Jews out of the stores, to get them out of business. And I remember my parents being very much concerned and worried about what the future is there. There was no future with the Poles. No future. It's a matter of fact, if I remember even a figure, 500 zlotys was 500 zlotys was so much money that time. And when the war came, and they owed the treasury, the Polish treasury, these 500 zlotys, they didn't sleep all the time until the war. When they said the Council War, people thought they didn't know what to expect. At least these 500 zlotys would be wiped out. That's silly. I mean, but so much did the 500 zlotys break them. They didn't have it. They didn't see together never 500 zlotys in there throughout in their store together 500 zlotys. So much money it was. My father bought merchandise on notes, and the notes came payable, and on a certain day, and this day come, and days before this note came payable. He knew that he wouldn't have it. He went to a Gemeles Chesed, to borrow money and to pay and take from one and give the other. Life was very hard. Although I'm still saying that we have not been going hungry, and we have not been the poorest people. We have not been poor. This was the sort of a middle class. This is how the last 30s have been in our Polish cities. This is how when they broke their neck, the Poles, that time. And the Russians came and we didn't know who they were. At least we got rid of the Poles. We didn't know what to expect from the Russians yet. We didn't know Germany. Germany was not there yet. So this was that.
What do you remember about September 1st, 1939?
As I said before, I was in Klos, and this is the Choiva Klos. I was sitting there, and I had a Rebbe. A Rebbe means a teacher. He was hard on hearing. And in the cities, in this Boryslaw, they announced that people who are, they drafting people that have been on reserve to report to the army. And it's a matter of fact, my future father-in-law also has been drafted, has been called in, and they drafted people to the army, the reserves, and I came into the shul, to this clothes where they had this Rabbi sat in line. I says to him, Reb Shulim, his name was Shulim. Reb Shulim says Milchome. I screamed to him. Says Milchome means there is a war. He didn't believe because they've been talking war, yes war, no war. The Poles are giving in. They're not giving in. The Germans wanted a part of Poland. This is well known. I'm not going into history now. That if the Poles give or they don't give, I says Reb Shulim, this is Milchome. He says, the Eibishter soll helfen, soll nicht lang dauern, which means, in translation, we have to ask back to the God Almighty, the war shouldn't take too long. And he said again that they can move on the line for continued time. And this war didn't take too long. Within days, the Polish, they crushed the Poles from two sides. It's well known. The Germans from one side and the Russians from the other side.
What were your thoughts at that time?
What I thought, we didn't know what to think. We didn't know one of the two, which is better of the two evils. Now, this would be false to say which is better. The Russians, to say that the Russians are just like the Germans, this is a mistake. I mean, this is not right. The Germans have been different. And the Russians, what I thought, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know that the Poles are going to crush so soon. We just hoped every morning that we're going to hear that a war is going on. One takes this city, the other goes back. Go forward, go back. But within days, they've been in our town, the Germans. Also, our city, according to their agreement between the Russians and the Germans, our city belonged to the Russians. But so, to the Russians.
Which city was this?
Boryslaw. I'm still talking Boryslaw. Because, it was the summer after Shavuos. And after Shavuos, I was in Boryslaw. So I didn't continue to Belz anymore. Belz was out for me. Since then, it was the last time Belz Shavuos. But the Germans came in faster than the Russians. So we had them in our town for a few days. As I mentioned before, when they came in the first time, which was in the beginning, what was it, September. After the war, a few days after they came into Boryslaw, and I was walking from the mikveh. This at the same time when the Germans came in.
What Germans did you see? Do you remember their uniforms?
I remember uniforms, riding on motorcycles. I didn't even think to be afraid of them.
The colors?
I was not smart enough.
The color of
How
their
old I
uniforms?
was.
The color of their uniforms.
The uniforms. Same uniforms. What color do they have? I don't even want to. I don't want to visualize. I don't want to see how they look like. Can't. I see them at night in my dreams. I don't want to see them anymore. At that time, the Germans came in, and they took places. Over. They built some tents where they stood there for these few days till the Russians came in. It took more than that. September, I don't remember whether it was Elul or Uf, whatever month it was on the Jewish calendar. But I'll remember Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I remember our times. Going to Rosh Hashanah, the Russians have been, the Germans probably have been gone already. I don't know when I remember so exactly. The Russians came in. When we see the Germans backing out, they have been not as the Germans that we knew later. They've been military. They came in according to the agreement that they had with Stalin. They had to make their border a certain place where our city was left to the Russians. So they moved out, and the Russians came in. And we remember, it was Yom Kippur. This I remember. It was Yom Kippur. They said, we finished all davening. Although we knew Rosh Hashanah, we had probably, can't think that and go that much back whether the Poles, I don't remember the calendar. I don't remember who we had Rosh Hashanah, whether the Germans or the Poles yet. And Yom Kippur, maybe we had the Germans Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur, the first Russian patrol came in, and somebody came to the Germans moved out. Somebody came in and said, Mazel Tov. The Chavayram then do. Chavayram means our friends are here. Because the Germans to go out and the Russians to come in. They said that our friends came here. They came in little by little. And then they occupied all the half of Poland, as well known, and we have been under the Russians. Now, what did we do under the Russians ourselves? It took a long time. We lived with them. Between this Yom Kippur, I said, throughout, this was 1939, which was 40, going to 41. We lived with them probably close to a year.
What was religious life like under the Russians?
Well, as I said before, we have been people that we worked hard for our lives. My father and some other people who didn't want, under the Russians, you had to work every 6 days a week. In the beginning, they did not. They let us go in Shabbos. Later on, they tried to tighten up. They tried to squeeze in all these religious people. Now, how do you squeeze them in? You have them, tell them you have to work Shabbos, you have to come in. So we tried to, they said if you make a certain artil, how would I translate it, called a corporation or something, and you make certain products, you can pick your day of rest. You can rest on Shabbos. It was like a night, and at that time it was great. So a lot of religious people among themselves tried to manufacture what raw materials we could get. We tried to manufacture something in order that we keep this corporation going. And we could pick our own day of rest, which was Shabbos. So me and my father, and other people, an uncle, and maybe a dozen or maybe other people, formed an artel called the corporation. Then we manufactured candles, because it was a place of oil, as we said before, and there was paraffin to be bought. And the candles are made out of paraffin, and we got some machineries, and we made candles, which was not a very important commodity for the Russians. But still, we also made, we didn't go by cars. The people didn't go by horse and wagon. So they used to grease these wagons. And this was a very important commodity. So we used to make these grease to grease the axles of the wagon. And this was very important. This took a short time till they decided that the resting day for everybody is only Sunday. So it was in vain, this whole business for all these from people. And whoever doesn't come in on Sunday is being sued. Is being summoned to court. And the sentence was 6 months loss of pay for one time, jail for the second time, and God knows whatever. It was a horrible thing for the Reform people. People have been going to Messias Nefesh, which would mean they would let kill themselves. As you know today, and today's thinking that Shabbos, the word Shabbos was horrible. Again, we had it harder than the secular Jews. Because the secular Jews, you have no choice, you have to work. If the government is pressing you, you have to work. But me and my father, that we belonged to this corporation, managed, what did we manage? We managed to get there knowing this manager, whoever was there, and he would let us sit there, and if a control would come in, he would produce, oh, here they are. They would control that everybody is in. Not punch your cards. Excuse me. And even I still remember the second Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur that we tried with a trick to say that something is broken. It's got to be fixed for Rosh Hashanah in this factory in order to let us 3 days or 2 days while this is being fixed, that we would be Rosh Hashanah, not in this place of business.
What happened?
It didn't work. Didn't work because of our Jewish managers too. I mean, I don't want. They thought that Mashiach is already here. Unfortunately, they thought that way, but then they learned that they have been also victims like anybody else by the Russians. This was the Russians.
Were you able to get kosher meat at that time?
No, we had strictly kosher. Well, if you didn't get, we didn't eat. The house was very, very kosher. I mean, other people that looked for kosher could get kosher. If we didn't have kosher bread or kosher bakeries, because the bread was so simple, was eaten by all the people in those days. No Hashayim and bread. Bread was eaten by everybody and baked at home. And we still, you want to know how life was, we still managed to make a living, keep a better living. I would say poor living, according to others, we lived a little better because we've been in this corporation, in this artel, I would call it. And we had a salary, it was not way too much, but it was enough to pull through. But remembering, you asked for my mother crying for this. What happened to the Jewish people? Why don't she have a husband? My son, I was the oldest son. My younger two brothers didn't work yet, so they have been home. Why didn't she have us on Shabbos? By saying, I should mention that this place of business was about in Drahovich, was another town. So we had to go Friday evening there. Instead of traveling Friday morning, Shabbos morning to work, to show up, not to work, we didn't work, to show up. So we had to struggle. Overnight, sleep in the factory, stay through, and there was no end in sight. Who there's such a might, such a Russian might, such a how would this ever be changed? So it was very sad for these religious people that had this life. But as I said before, there have been a lot of religious people that gave in, and the secular people didn't bother. And there have been other people like us. We haven't been the only ones. But it was a sad, even food was there, but the persecution of religion was unbearable. And you have to daven in the morning, put on tefillin, and if it's night, you don't put on the tefillin. What I did, I started walking in the morning, getting to the factory, and not having communion. And also everything was very hard, was much harder. This was the Russian occupation. And then, as we well know, we didn't know what to expect. Came the other part.
When were you first aware of their presence?
Of whose presence?
The Germans.
Germans' presence. As we go the same line, I had an uncle in my house. And we went up in the morning, a Sunday. It was already Sunday, because Sunday I didn't go to the factory. Sunday morning we wanted to continue on Torah study. So we got up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. In Europe was a normal thing, 4 or 6 o'clock to get up, was daylight already. And we learned, I remember the Gemara that we learned. I still remember it now, Masechta Chulin, if it makes any difference. And we learned the Sigge from Nesha, the Sigge, and Perik, Perik 3, I think. The Masechta Chulin, I learned this with my uncle there. And we sit at the window, and all of a sudden, a lot of planes are flying. Sunday morning. I think it's a Sunday morning, otherwise I would have been to work. I'm starting to recall mad memory dates, which I don't remember. Most probably Sunday morning. Planes are flying. He says to me, my uncle, he's not here anymore. He perished too. His name was Floyd Yitzchak. He was a brother to my father. He slept in our house at that time. He says to me, Moshe, I don't like these planes. What are they flying? So many planes.
Was any insignia?
It was 4 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, very early in the morning. Just in Europe, the daylight starts very early.
Were you able to see any insignia on these planes to know from what country they were?
But we seen it very soon, within minutes. The battery started to shoot at them. The Russian battery started to shoot. There have been rumors from England. We used to listen to England radios. I don't mean myself, but in the shul, talk in the shul, politics. The English Churchill used to say that Hitler is concentrating a big army on the Russian border, and so this is well known. I don't have to repeat all this. But this uncle says to me, something must be going on now. Maybe it's a war. I don't know. Something is going on. Until the Russians decided to let the people know that they have been invaded by the Germans. There was an English audition from London. In the same building that we lived, somebody had a radio that he heard the English BBC, and he said that the Germans invaded Russia. And we knew already what that means, what this plane means. And it took only a few days, very few days, and they came in already, the Germans. That was the real Germans. The first ones that I mentioned, coming from the mikveh, was nothing. Then they came in to stay.
What was it like?
What was it like? They came in, first of all, the Russians left. They burnt a lot of these oil wells. The oil wells had certain tops on top. This was all out of wood. And these tops they put on fire in order so half of the city was burning. They came in, was a lot of smoke. And of course, who is this? The Jews, always the Jews. The Jews' house is burned down because these wells have been all over the city where they put them on. They didn't tell the people to go away or to move out or whatever. They put them on fire. I had an uncle, my father's older brother, whose name was Kalman. His house burned down together with his oil well. And they came in and they established the Wehrmacht. The Wehrmacht came in, which means the army, the military came in. No Gestapo yet. We didn't know what to expect. We've been hiding in the houses. We didn't want to walk on the streets. They made a Judenrat. They established the city government.
Who was in charge of that?
Of the Judenrat. think there were more than one. There was Dr. Hertz is his name, was his name. I don't think he survived. You're talking the very beginning. You're talking Beryshis. Beryshis means when the world was created. We didn't know yet.
Did they have any effect on your daily life?
They had a big effect on daily life. First of all, they registered all the Jews. Came in probably a civil government came in, civil joinments. Not joinment civil, I mean joinment police. Came in a little later. They had 3 police forces. They had a Schutz police and a Reiter police. Schutz means, they called him that name. What means Schutz? I wouldn't translate it. Reiter police means police on mounted police on horses. They had Ukrainian police, 3 police. We had these few Jews had 3 police on them to take care of them. What they did in the beginning, they didn't want the Jews to be in the houses. They wanted, they registered them. They made a so-called employment office, call it an employment office, that everybody would be registered, come in, where do you live, what's your name, go report every day, every morning, go report to work. Where do you go to work? They made a Judenrat. This Judenrat we had to come over in the morning, we had to come to this place, where they had a big court, this place, you always came to the court. And they have been put people to work in different places. He was going to this part of the city, they were going to this part of the city. They didn't even have enough places to work to put these Jews to work. Well, I should mention something else. When the Russians left, they burned the bridges too. There were some bridges around us. There was one bridge, was on a river on the outskirts of Boryslaw, between Boryslaw and Drohobych, which is the next city, was a bridge over a river. And this little bridge was, this little village there was called Modrich. This place of Modrich, the build was, they had to rebuild the bridges. Taking out people to build bridges, I mean, they have to know how to build bridges. So they had joined Wehrmacht, or the army. They have nothing to do with the Gestapo or with the police. They just been the Wehrmacht, the army. They have asked every morning till this bridge was ready. It took a week or 2 weeks, or maybe I don't remember how many weeks. They asked this Judenrat to send them Jews to work, helping them, carrying logs, boards, and knocking Jews' hats off by the same time. And I was there once. Whoever went to this Modrich, they knew when they divided these people, the Judenrat, and they divided these people to their places of work, he knew already he is going to this place. That's not so bad. He's going to the other place. This is a worse place. And this one is going to Modrich. Modrich is the worst place yet. I'm talking the very beginning, don't forget.
Why was this place so bad?
The place so bad because there was a bridge, and they have been German soldiers there that watched over them. As a matter of fact, we put in a day's work for no reason, just carrying stones out of the water, putting in the other place, from the other place to this place, and a lot of beatings. And on top of it, they took 4 or 5 people on the end of it, and they make him a tevila. You know what tevila means? Dip him in the water, to be total. Dip him in the water, to walk home, water running from all their clothing. This is how they walked home from this. Not all of us. I've been there once only. I was lucky enough to go other place, but once they sent me there. My mother knew that I'm going to Modrich at this date. She couldn't wait to see me back.
What was the
people
weather
had to
like?
go there. But this bridge was finished within a couple of weeks.
What was the weather like then?
The weather was pretty chilly. It was already in Europe at that time was already fall starting. It was cold. It was cold. It was chilly. And these poor people, and I don't know whoever lives, all of these people that have been dipped in this river in Modrich, and we came back. So we came back. This Judenrat had what would I say? They had to supply workers to the joinments all the time, not to the joinments as much as to the civil, to city hall, to do things. The joinments didn't want us to stay home. And this was the beginning. We are going back now. They came in 41, You're going back to Rosh Hashanah in Kippur. And they dragged out Jews of the houses. I mean, the Union made them to go out of the houses, and they pressed on the Union, and they sent them to work.
Who made the people leave their homes? Who enforced the rules?
Well, the Union enforced the rules.
But who came to the
rules
house?
have not been. No, we would be happy and lucky going to work. The rules have not been going to Majdanek or to Auschwitz. The rule we came home at night.
But who actually made you leave the house?
Well, we got a piece of paper a day before. Tomorrow morning you will report here and there. You know, this is how all the young people gathered, and they went to this place. And from this place, we have been divided to different jobs.
How old were you at that point?
Well, I was 41. I was 21, 19 years old. 19 years old. Going on 20, I would say.
When you went to work, what did you wear?
I had a problem this too. You just hit it in the head. I did not have clothing like the modern people have. So whatever I had was my clothing did not fit me. So what I had is to acquire clothing, which was very hard. So whatever I could, it didn't fit, whether it was long or it was short, but we managed.
Where did you get the clothing?
From other Jews, from other Jews.
What was the food situation at that point?
The food situation was a problem, a very big problem, hunger, but not starving. Now people we exchanged household things for food by the Gentiles. In other words, somebody still had a ring to give, to exchange. So we, being in the textile store, we had, I should tell something else that I just remind myself. This was the very beginning. I just skipped something. Should I go back? Go back. I skipped something. The very beginning when they came in, when the Germans came in, they set up, you said food. That's how the food brought me back to remind myself what was going on. We exchanged things from the house for food. There was a neighbor next to us. I don't remember his name, Borysław. I don't remember his name. It's not exactly maybe. A neighbor of us, Rainer or Pollock. They could be whatever they wanted. They did not show on their face whether he's an Ukrainer or he's a Pollock. So they joined us. If the Ukrainer had been better, but he's a Ukrainer. If the Poles would be better, he was a Pole. They did not have it. They did not show on their faces. I don't know what he was. He worked in a bakery, this young man. He was lived next to us like 20, 30 feet away, with his family. He worked in a bakery, and we managed to get the bread after a day's work. So now, and as we worked at the Russian time, and we worked at the Russian time, we had rationing tobacco. We didn't smoke, so we put it together. My father had all the time tobacco in his house. We saved it on a rainy day. Tobacco was a big commodity. So this Ukrainer here, that a Polish, that he brought the bread in for tobacco. So I was wondering, my father was a smart man.
We have to stop the tape now. Today is May 30th, 1996. Our survivor is Murray Bergman.
Now my father, being a smart man, when he took this bread from attic and gave extension for the tobacco, I couldn't figure out why he did it in front of him. This attic could see where my father has hiding this tobacco. I thought about it later because he figured this boy grew up next to us. Sure enough, one day, the Ukrainian police, this was in the very beginning, and as I said before, it was not established yet, no government, no nothing, no civil government by the Germans. In other words, in the very beginning, that in order to feed the family, we needed bread. So he exchanged it for the tobacco. So one day, the police knocks at the door in our house, come in, Ukrainian police, they have been as ruthless as you can think. They came in order to obey them. They didn't even have uniforms yet, because they had weapons, and they had civil uniforms. They've been just forming this Ukrainian police. First of all, he gave him a matuna. Matuna means a present. Hit him over the face, my father, this policeman. I wasn't in the house, by the way. I happened to be in shul, learning. But I'll still do my own profession, my old profession. But I know exactly what had happened there.
Where were these policemen from? Were they from?
Local people, local.
Did you know any of them?
No. Well, maybe afterwards we figured out that one was a son of people that used to come to my father's store. He lived in the outskirts of Boryslaw, which was the name of Tustanovich. Anyway, to make the story short, they asked, where is your tobacco? Where do you have your things? So we figured it was easy to figure out that this addict told them that this house has tobacco. So they went right away to the place where the tobacco was hidden. So this proved that my father made a mistake, that this addict knew where to look for the tobacco.
Was it illegal to possess tobacco?
No, not illegal at all. But they came in for loot. They knew there is tobacco, so why shouldn't they have it? Illegal. It's not. What did they do? I was in shul at that time. The shul was still open. I was learning. My uncle that I mentioned before came to the shul and said to me, Moshe, there are police in our house. They came in three or four police. Who are the police? Bandits. They're police. They're bandits. They are in our house. If they take the tobacco and they go, fine. They knew that my father had a dry goods store. They must be hidden some materials and this and that. There was no, here you would ask whether you have permission to go in or do you have permission to search, to look. They didn't need no permission. It was enough that my father was a Jew. It was permitted already to do anything. Anyway, they looked through the house. They found material that my father had taken from the store while the store was, when he liquidated the store. He took some home for our own use, like he would take in for material for shirts or for underwear, or a dry goods store, whatever they had, materials. They picked up 2 valises. In the meantime, my uncle came to me, as I said before, came to the shul, tell me, there are police in our house. He said to me, say some Tehillim. What does a Jew do? Says Tehillim. He told me what to say Tehillim. And I said, and I remember, I remember the passage, the capital, the thing that I said.
Can you translate that?
The Lam Natzayach Yanchu means if somebody is in pain, if somebody has a problem, we pray to Hashem to help out. Yanchu Hashem b'yoim tzur. Means Hashem should answer you. The Tamara wrote it down in Tehillim. Should answer you when you are in a ish tzur, when you are in a bad situation. He told me, my uncle told me to say it so many times, which I don't remember. He told me 5 or 6 or 10 times, say this Yanchu. So I said it in the street here, walking home from the shul. Come home, I knock on the door. They found them. They opened the door for me. I still had my payers. I still had my clothing. So you asked me where I took clothing. This was the very beginning. Took me in like somebody finds a jewel. They took me in. They sat me down. They sat with my father. They said, They asked my father, what do you do with tobacco? I said, my father says I'm smoking. I know it's a war going on. I keep it for myself. If he didn't have a factory of tobacco, maybe he had 10, 20 packs. What did they have here? Wouldn't be anything. But at that time, since we didn't smoke, so we exchanged it for bread. So except the tobacco that they took, they packed up valises of dry goods. And instead of carrying the valises of dry goods to the police, to their station, which so-called police station, which was not set up enough yet, they took me and my mother to carry these valises to this station. And we went to this station, me with this whole dress that I told you with the pay. They took me to this station. It was probably a few blocks away, and we carried it there. I was not smart, and they would let me go maybe home after I left there. I asked him for a piece of paper because we have not allowed to be walking after 7 o'clock in the streets. This was already announced. The Jews after 7 o'clock had to be in the streets, had to be at home, not to walk on the street. So I says to this commander-in-chief, whoever he was, I says to him, "We are walking home, maybe you give me a piece of paper. Somebody's going to stop me that I was in the police station of Outbreak." He had no problem. He says he had no problem. He put me in jail for overnight. Now, who did he put me in jail? My mother too. He put us in jail overnight, and he'll go in the morning. What this jail was, they caught some bandits on the streets, some people that broke the law. They've been in this cell, and they put me into this cell. And then, as soon as they got me in, they started to beat me. I don't know what I should say it to you. They put me they slept on the floors. I mean, they've been criminals. They put me in a corner, and everybody was urinating on me. Of these Ukrainian, Polish, who broke the law and been in this cell. And they beat me, and I screamed. My mother was in the next cell alone because they didn't have women there with my mother. So she heard her son. You can imagine, she thought that they're killing me, they're hanging me, or doing something. She didn't know where I am. They put her there. She left me on the station upstairs. So they put me down here. I forgot to tell them that the Ukrainian police, before they sent me to this cell, to the jail, they picked me up on my feet like this, and they let me down on my head a few times, just for exercise, up and down, up and down. I came into this cell beaten up already, and this policeman says to these inmates, "Watch out! Don't hit him too much." Means they gave permission already. Don't hit him too much. Don't beat him too much. Don't beat him too much. So I had a night, you can imagine. I didn't sleep. They didn't see me because it was dark yet. But they said I'm a real communist, of course. The communists moved out. Hitler with the communists. They have a communist down there. They should take revenge. Well, this was one part of the night. We went out in the morning. The morning they opened up the cell. They let me out back home. If I wouldn't have mentioned for this piece of paper, I wouldn't have this night. Maybe I would have gone. Maybe they would have caught me. Maybe they would not. But my mother saw me in the morning. They opened my cell and her cell. She saw me in black and blue, my eyes swollen, all around beaten up. She started screaming and being happy that I'm still alive. We came home to our house. My father was left in the house with my two brothers. And this is a little episode how the beginning was, how food was. The food, you spoke of food that I mentioned. Then I came back to see how this Hasidic himself was himself a criminal. I think the Germans took him later somewhere. They sent him away to Germany. I don't know whatever happened to him. But he felt very free to go to the police and tell them that in this house is tobacco, and and Jews have been out of any rights, no complaints, no nothing. Take, do whatever you want, whatever you feel like. This is a little episode. Now let's go back where I probably left before. That food, peasants, Poles, Ukrainians came in. They exchanged, as we said before, some things that we still had from our dry goods store. And we still live that way, I would say, until we are talking after Rosh Hashanah, in Kippur. By the way, we had a minion in our house, Shabbos. I should mention that. My father was afraid to go to Shul Davening. My father took us Sefer Torah home. We had a minion. People from the neighborhood came in, and we davened in our house. It means that we did not realize yet where we are and what we do, who they are, who we are. As a matter of fact, my future father-in-law lived across the street. Maybe she'll talk about it. And he used to come even davening to our minion there, and an uncle of ours. He used to come into our minion. And me and my brothers, who was already the minion full, somehow people squeezed in and we davened in our house. This was Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We are talking 41. Pretty soon was 42. Because Rosh Hashanah is already late in the year, so came 42. Now we are up to. So this how it was food. It was scarce. It was rationed. My father, everybody had a little piece of bread, not no more.
Did the Jews and non-Jews have the same rations?
No, they didn't have no rations. We didn't have no rationing. I was misunderstood. It was rationed in our family. Like it was taken out a piece of bread. Every child got a little piece. That's for you. You have to go with this a whole day till next day.
Did you have to wear a
The
star?
father rationed it. The mother, the family was rationing this bread. And we cooked, we tried to get some grain. We cooked grain. The hunger was very bad. I mean, we lost weight. There's not to talk about. You can see it. If I have any pictures left there, you'll see how it looked like at that time.
Did you have to wear a star?
Did I wait?
A star. A yellow star or any sort of
course,
star.
At the very beginning, we didn't have stars. They gave us on the armbands.
What did it look like?
Well, it was 4 inches wide around the arm, and it was a big Star of David here.
And what color?
And this white, to be seen at night, to be seen all the time.
What color was the star?
The star was, I actually don't remember. It was how you had to. The star had to be made by ourselves. They told us what color to do in order to show, to prove from a distance to see this on the arm when we went. And well, starts the winter. This is the most hardest part. Starts the winter. The winter. Well, as we said before, everybody had to have a job, not jobs. Everybody had to go out from this house to go to work. So where do we go to work? In order, if somebody we have believed whoever will be working will be saved. So in order to not to go to this gathering place where the United sent people all over them, and they came back blue eyes and hit and broken and beaten up. So we tried to get into the UNOT itself. What do you do in the UNOT? You bury people. People have been dying. So my father worked on the cemetery, receiving these corpses, and me and some people, talking from people, that we pushed ourselves into these jobs, have been going to these houses to gather the corpse and to bring it to the cemetery. And this was the very beginning, and it was a very tough, cold, hard, hunger winter. We have been given little pieces of bread by the family that my father gave everybody a ration. There have been many people that didn't have what to exchange and didn't have what to give. And they died like flies. They died.
Were the bodies prepared for the burials?
Now let me go to the bodies. It was horrible to walk in. Well, of course, we forget something else. There's a tough winter. You need fuel. You cannot. Could you imagine living in a house where it's 0 degrees without any heat? But this was it. There was no heat. There was no heat, no wood, no coals. No, we didn't have. Also, the city had gas. Our city. Some places had gas. Very few. Now going back, I was going to pick up these corpses with some other people, phone people, day by day.
How did you transport them?
How we transport them on a little wagon. We had a little wagon with wheels, and we brought them to the cemetery. People have been dying through this hard, harsh winter. They came to the UNRAD. The UNRAD have been forced or pressured by the Germans to have these people buried. But you could bury only so much because the ground was frozen. To dig a cave was very hard work, hard ground. How do you do it? People, the UNOT gave these people that have been digging these quorum, they gave them a little more bread. The pay of this day's work was probably, I would say, a half pound of bread for a day's work. For them, maybe they gave him a full pound of bread in order that they keep on digging and bury all the people that died. But I recall, I was going to houses where the family knew that they're not going to survive. The person was still alive. They came. The children of the father or the mother came to this UNRAD to register that the father is dead, to be taken away. They knew he's going to wait 3-4 days. He was still alive. He was not dead. And they came in advance in order that he was buried at the right time, that he was buried then. And it happened. I don't know how I should mention it. That sometimes he took even somebody who was still not quite there. We did according to halacha, we've been from people. We the people that carried him there. And we took him with covet and with, what covet means, with dignity, and put him in a box. He had a box.
Where did you get these boxes?
The box was from the Kehillah. It was a previous box from when the world was still a world, before even they put him into the box, and we brought him to the cemetery. And my father was on the cemetery with other people like him, and they tried to give him a tahar, what that means, and put him on.
Could you explain the procedure?
The procedure was they washed him like they wash here, because we're still talking in the beginning where people that had not been buried like dogs. So they gave him a little tahara, and they put him on. Of course, we didn't have no tachrichim, which means that you took tried to get some boxes. We didn't have for them. We didn't have for them boxes. We just put them in with sheets from beddings, packed them in these sheets, and put them down. Put a board on top of him, and then putting the oil on top of them. We buried like this in the thousands. I would say not many thousands. I would say at least maybe 2,000 people. The city had about 14,000, 15,000 Jews. There were still left. About 2,000. These was the very, very poorest people, families, children, mothers, fathers, older people. They did not have any they did not. Oh, I forgot the whole thing to tell them.
You had mentioned one point that some of the people weren't quite dead when you had gone to transport them.
I can hardly go into it. I can hardly go into it. We brought a poison that the children thought he was dead, and he wasn't quite dead. We brought him in. It was a cold winter, and they took him on and this tahara break in this funeral place, where they put water on him in order to give him tahara. And he started to move, or something happened there. They packed him in. There was nowhere to send him back. Somebody said, he's our anyway. If he's not now, he'll be tomorrow here. I don't remember what happened to this man. The story, my father came home. He was so sick at that night, and we brought a person who was not even quite dead, because the people have been afraid. If they don't register, they don't tell in advance, he's going to be with them sitting in the same bed, not in the same room, in the same bed, covered with the same pillows, or with the same covering for a week, with their own children, and that poisoned the children. To be in the same bed for days was a normal thing. Taken out the poison to be buried, and he would be find him in the bed with his living children, and these children are next candidates. They're talking to the very poorest people. That's how they died. I forgot to tell you, ask me of pogroms. There was a first pogrom in the beginning when the Germans came in the very beginning. They gave the Ukrainians free hand to go and kill. So this was before Anakin, before the Brat yet. And they gathered about 170 people and just killed them with sacks and with axe. Eggs and pigs, and we gathered them together too. We're talking of gathering that people. I might go back to this one. Now, what we do this winter now, we're still in this winter. In this winter, since I worked with these people died of typhoid fever. This is very contagious. And I came home with fever one night. And I got the real McCoy, I got the real typhoid fever, and I was in bed for quite a bit of time, no medications, cold, no food. First of all, my father got rid of the other two children, means sent them to a neighbor, in order that they don't get the disease, this contagious. He stood by my bed day and night, with my mother, trying to My brother Bale, that I'll talk later maybe of him, used to go out and bring in some food and not walking into the house, just standing by the window, that he is at the door, and they took from him some medication that somebody died already and had this fever and died already. Medication was left. As a matter of fact, that this medication that was given to me was from my Frida's, from my wife's uncle, that he died on it. And my brother used to go there and pick it up and bring it to me. We've been very close neighbors. We lived across the street, me and her. It means the families lived across the street. So I survived this typhoid fever. An uncle of mine died on it, another one. I survived it. And my mother and me and my father, the three of us in the house, locked in, and the Judenrat put up by the German command, the Germans' orders, they put people in front of every house to keep, not to keep people away from the houses. They didn't want this disease to spread. So nobody could walk, and even like in curfew, all these houses. But my brother managed to come in and bring in as long as it lasted. And I got out of it, and we still had, I said we had no doctors. We had Jewish doctors. The Jewish doctors came in. There was no paying for them, but they came in for mitzvahs to help. He came into my house, and he checked the pulse and took the temperature and told us, told whatever to do in prescriptions, but whatever we got, whatever we didn't get, we couldn't get. So these doctors, to say that they did a good job, they did go into these houses, also knowing that's contagious. So I want to give a plug for them. They did go into the houses, some. And then this was talking of the winter, right? There's a tall, very tall, raw winter. I got out of it, and this doctor said, if I wouldn't get enough food, where do you get food? After you go through this disease, you have to eat enough. If you don't eat, I'm going to get, what's called a heart disease or something. I will get sick of my heart. So whatever the family did, I'll never forget it. Whatever they were supposed to eat, they gave me, my father, my mother, the brother. So somehow we survived this winter, the whole family of ours.
What happened in spring?
Now comes spring. Spring was not, talking of hunger, people dying day and day and day, and I still work on this cemetery, bringing people. I had somebody working with me by the name of Shimon Tef. I wouldn't like to mention his name, of course, a very from Jew. He says to me, Moshe, I just saw a Ramban that he says if somebody starts with the Jews, he'll go under. You have to believe it. For this line to tell us that he was all over Europe, and to believe in it was like something somebody would tell you, I don't know what's going to happen. Come on. And I remember that he encouraged me by saying, you have to believe it, you have to believe it. But he believed in it. Unfortunately, he did not survive. But the line came through. But he survived Hitler. In other words, he didn't say that we'll survive, but he'll say that Hitler's going to go under. And this I want to mention him too. Then the spring came, the hunger was terrible. Came Pesach. Pesach, what do you eat Pesach? The Judenrat have been given some rations of flours to bake matzahs, but the demand was so big, I don't remember whether we had 5 or 6 matzahs for our whole family for the whole Pesach. And going back again, this family gave it most of it to me in order to get me out of this disease that I had, in order that I survive. I'll never forget it. My mother's tears, I'll never forget it. And after Pesach, well, we did not have any what would I say, vyvoskis they called it. In Polish it's called vyvoskis, in our way would it be called transportations yet, gathering people and taking them away to Belzec. This was the real time. This started, this was already by towards the end of the summer. The summer went through a very hard summer. We still lived in our own houses. We still managed with our meager food. We still been together. The whole family been together. All five of us, the family, 3 children and the parents. And then came the real thing. This was in Off, that I had my father's yurtza. This was in Off, Monet Off. Monet Off is probably in August.
This is 1942?
This was 1942, because on the Jewish calendar, on the secular calendar, changes in the middle of the winter. So it was 1942. They said we had no idea that people are being born to shot to death or killed or whatever.
Did you hear any rumors about concentration camps?
Not at all. It's a matter of fact, if you believe me or not. The real concentration camps, we heard almost after the war, almost towards the end of it, because our people, they didn't take to concentration camps. They killed them all locally. They didn't. I don't know how they killed. I'm not sure yet how people know how they were killed in Belgium, but I don't know whether they had all these equipment which they had in Auschwitz. They have not been yet as developed as yet. Maybe they tortured them more than they tortured I don't know what's more torturing. But Belgium was a different thing. What I remember is they have been. I missed a lot. Of course, I cannot tell everything. I missed an actie. They called it an actie. It was a first actie and a second actie and a third actie. What actie would mean, what I will translate an actie means. Actie means rounding out people and sending them to death. Instead of saying killing people, they called it an actie. I'm going out to the third actie. I missed the first and the second. Maybe somebody else will tell it because I'm already, going to the third actie where our family started. On the third actie, it took a few days to gather a big amount of people, probably 5,000 people, I said, from this city. So me, my father, working and this Judenrat, we thought that we are important to them. They will save us or whatever. So our house, our apartment was laying in such a corner that you had to go around an alley to get there. So we have not actually been in front of everything. So they had enough. And the first and the second taxi that we talk about, we have not been touched yet. So now we go to the third taxi. The second taxi, they took people, not too many, probably in the hundreds, and they took them to the woods, and they dug a big cave, and they shot them there. And we did not believe that this happened until very, 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 very late. Because who could believe that you take people and you kill them, you shot them for no reason? For me, to be their enemy, I didn't know why I'm his enemy. I never had anything to do with it. I never saw him and he never saw me. Why was I his enemy? What did I do to him? He had a cheshbon with the Poles, but what did we Jews do to him? Anyway, let me go back to the third act, see how it started.
Could we save this for this next tape?
Right.
War. Today is May 30th, 1996, and our survivor is Murray Bergman.
Well, if I will start to tell about the third act here, it was the last time that I saw my father. We have been upstairs, looking out through a window. People have been gathering into a big place. This was a movie house. They took in a lot of people. They filled up this movie house. While people have been slow to go when they drove into this movie house, drove not by car, by feet. And they shot the people in the side. People didn't go out of their houses. They shot people all over the city. Whoever did not manage to get to this moving place, to the movie house, a big movie house.
Now, who rounded up the people?
Who rounded up the people? They came special German police came, and the Ukrainian police and the Polish police, Schutz police, Reiter police, Schutz police, Ukrainian police, and they take Jewish police to go and find these people, to break houses. People lock the houses in there. People lock themselves in the houses. It was a silly thing. Instead of leave the house open and hiding somewhere, and the house was locked. They figured that somebody must be inside. They looked through the house, and they got him out. Anyway, this the transport couldn't take 5,000 people. This dritte Aktie, the third Aktie, took something approximate of that amount of people. So they couldn't take them all. So they made it in 2 shifts. In other words, they took some people, bring them there and transported them, and they started all over again.
Where did the people think they were going?
I'm trying to recall whether I know they stopped in between, but I don't remember whether they sent out the first one first or they gathered them together. I can't figure that out. Anyway, I can't think that much back. Let me go now. My father looks out of the window and sees his people, his Chaber Kaddish, running with a wagon, pulling Mason. Mason means corpse, to the cemetery. Been a lot of people shot in the city. A friend of my father's, says to my father, Rib Yankov Harish. What's his name? So many people and so many dead people, and you sit in your room. My father was late in the afternoon. My father was still in his stalls and twin davening. Means he didn't eat. He says, Moshe says to me, Ach, Mr. Guy, I have to go. He puts down the towels and twin. He says to me, put it together, put it in the bag, and I have to go. How can I stay in the house? So many calls. It's the last time I saw him. He went down. He worked there. I don't know how long he worked there, but let me go back to me. This was the in-between time. They started, and they stopped, and then they started again. And the second time when they started, they got me too. And my brother Baal, and my brother Isaac. So they got all 3 of us. Somehow they didn't get my mother. My mother was in the alleyway or so, some hiding. They passed this house, and she was there, they didn't see her, and she was left. So it was a Friday afternoon. My father wasn't there because he was gathering the dead people. So he was on the police station. And my mother was hidden some day first. And all 3 brothers have been there in this place. We came in Friday afternoon. We saw the roof from the city. Means the roof means a roof was a rebbe from the city. He still was around until this third Axie. He was not caught before yet.
Do you remember his name?
His name was Reb Shmuel Oikech. And he was my rebbe in a way. I learned him. When I came home for these vacations, for these intervals, I went to him to learn. And I saw him there, and I said to him, Rebbe, Matacho, you here too? He started to cry. It was Friday afternoon with a lot of beatings. The people that if we went into this gathering place, everybody had to get beaten up with a lot of beatings. Of course, no sanitary places. Everybody, day and at night, everybody did wherever they stood or whatever. So they gathered us the second. I have been, me and my 2 brothers, been on the second shift. So we stood in the back all the way, not in the front, with this Reb Shmuel Oikech. We've been there with him, and we were lying on the floor. They didn't want us to stand even. They didn't want us to stand in case we are going to we're going to fight them. And we're lying down. If somebody raises, they know that he raises. He's up to do something. Could we do anything? We've been dead and hungry and everything else. So this Reb Shmuel says to me, I asked him, I was a young boy, a little chutzpah, and I says to him, Rabbi, I'm a young man and I'm not crying. Can you an alter yid? An old man, why are you crying? That's what it's supposed to, that's you have to believe. That's what can we do? You know what he said to me? Metecha Boryslaw means you are going to be free. And I will not come back from here. You are going to be free.
What did you think of that?
Well, he knew what he said, like I know what's going to be next year somewhere in China. But he said it was a bruch. I take it for a bruch. You'll get free. He was an old man. He was a very learned man, and a tzaddik too. He was my father's. He was older than my father yet. He was, and he sat and cried. He didn't have the beard already. They cut it off. He was a very good-looking man. He was a roof in the city with all full-fledged roof, like a roof in a city, not like a rabbi that's in a shul somewhere. He was the roof to the entire city. And everybody belonged to him. Had to. Anyway, let me go further because it'll take too long. This was Friday night. Saturday morning, early in the morning, they take us all. They house means out. They empty the garbage. They put us out in three. They take us to the station, to the train station. We walk into the train station. It's a walk for 20 minutes or something like that.
Did you have any possessions with you? Any belongings?
Nothing.
You weren't carrying anything?
No, they took me in a hiding place. I couldn't carry because they took me in the line and threw me into this place. Some people that had been prepared to go somewhere, they took something. I didn't have it in the pocket. Even my pockets have been empty. Nothing. So we went to this subway, to this train station, and we waited there for hours and hours and hours because these cattle cars have been also a very expensive commodity to have wasted them. We waited for these cars. And as I said before, I didn't see my father and I didn't know where he was. I didn't see him in this gathering place, so I was under the impression that he is somewhere in the Judenrat because he had a paper that he works for the Judenrat to gather these dead people, to bury the dead people. So finally these cattle cars came a major from Lvov. Lvov was the biggest city around here. Came a major. There was a terrible camp by the name Yanovsky. I don't want to talk about it. Maybe you'll find it some other places. Because if I'll start talking about Yanovsky, I'll never get through. Everybody passed him, like it's well known past Mengele. He passed him this mayor, this major. He had a rank of a major in the SS or somewhere. And he made right and left and right and left. Of course, the women didn't pass, only the young people like me, my two brothers. He passed this mayor. And I passed him, and he asked everybody, where do you work? By that time, I was already working in the oil wells. I should have told it before. I was already not direct in the oil wells, but for a contractor who contracted the oil wells. It makes a difference, because whoever was direct in the oil wells was putting to the right side. Whoever was not, he could do whatever. He did whatever he wanted. My brother saw me. My brother went to the left, and I went to the right. We're talking of this brother Bale. And I went to the right. He saw that the people on the right side are better-looking people, so he figured it must be a better. So he tried to run through to my side. So a German policeman saw him, and he beat him up and put him back there. We still going the same way. Our clothing was a little different, so he had a little sweater on it. He ran another time. Now let me tell you how I was going to the right side. Why did I go to the? He asked me where I work. I said I'm working for this contractor. This contractor was not Beskiden. Beskiden was a place to work. So Bites, that was a general director of all these valley. He was well known in the city as he helped Jews, and he was a nephew to Frank. There were rumors that he was related to him, and this is how he was in Borysław, and he saved Jews. He came over to me. His name was Bites. He came over to me, to the mayor, while he was asking me. Ja, der Arbeiter bei uns in the Beskiden. I couldn't even talk anymore. This is how I went the right side. My brother went to the left side. He tried to run over. They caught him. He tried another time, and another boy was next to him, gave him a jacket, put it on him, so he didn't recognize me. I recognized him, so he was there. He stood there. So my younger brother, whose name is Isaac, he also saw that his line is a poor line, but he couldn't do it anymore. He was 14 years old. He was shorter. He didn't make it. After this, we all went, these transport, these cars went away to Belzec.
How did you know where they were going?
No, we didn't know. We know now. We didn't know. At that time, we didn't know. We thought they were going to work. They went to Belzec, and the people these lucky people, 170 out out of some thousands had to register next day in the morning to come to work to this beskiden. So we had to go to this bites. And this bite said every morning, everybody, tomorrow morning, everybody to come and register to me and go to work. Otherwise, he said like this, otherwise like this. And this was just, I still remember his face making this. And this was probably a cover-up, but after finding out how good he was, how many Jews he helped and saved. So this was a cover-up.
How many people do you think he saved?
Well, he saved, we have been later in a labor camp that I couldn't, that zwangslavor camp that we didn't get even there. There's a long way to get there yet. And I guess because of him, hundreds of Jews he saved, hundreds of Jews.
Did you get special treatment? Was there extra food other than you would have gotten just living at home?
Where in this
Working for him.
Working for the beskiden, we have been treated better. This was called the Zwangsarbeitslager. This was not a concentration lager. We have been treated better. We have been in our own city. We didn't have.
What were the conditions like?
The conditions, we slept on hard boards, and every morning we got up and we still remember to daven with minyan.
Did anybody have tefillin?
I had tefillin all the time. Because it was our own city, I managed to have the tefillin.
How did you get them?
Well, I had them with me all the time, carrying with me, like you carry your jacket, you carry the tefillin, day and night. And after this bite, we finished it. My mother was still hidden there. And this was actie number 3. There was an actie number 4 and an actie number 5. An actie number 5 and an actie number 6. Actie number 6, my mother was caught, and she was shot in a mass grave in Boryslaw, and this is still around here. Still, this grave is there. I wish if I would have a little more mood, I would. Still planning, maybe I should go there, but the grave is still there. My brother was taken away. Somebody told me there that my father was in this transport, and I came home. I found out that he went on the third actie. I didn't even know that he went on this transport, because at the end they put him there too on the same transport. Well, what we went through after this, after this bite, we went into this camp, and the camp was sort of closed. The camp was outside of this, was a little outskirt of the city, set a little out of the city. Our labor places, our working places have been near the woods. So from this labor camp, we managed, while working for them, we managed at the same time to dig holes in the ground. In a rainy day, as they say now, if you have to escape, you should have a place where to escape. Somehow, this was very lucky for me that I survived there. And we had the Banderovцы came after us. They killed plenty of us in the woods. Out of so many people that we went to the woods, very few went out of the woods. As a matter of fact, we have to change these hiding places. We dug here, and here was a little too dangerous. We went to another place, a safer place. We came in a safer place. We thought it was a safer place. All of a sudden, one night we've been surrounded by Ukrainian bandits. They call themselves Banderovцы. We have just heard the day before that they went to a bunker and they killed the people in the whole bunker. The next night they came to us, found us there. So we put up a little fight with that. And we've been lucky to escape from this place. Finally, where do we go? We go to another place. We dig another place. Food, no nothing, nowhere to go.
Who did you do this with? The digging and the hiding.
What did I do?
Who did it with you?
Well, we've been a group of people. We've been more than one.
How many
my
people?
My brother Baal, as I keep on talking of him. And a lot of people that are not around anymore. Not around anymore means not died, but they just got caught by different places and perished in other places.
How many people do you think were in your group to do this?
Well, my group, what I say, 15, 20, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but our group of people, from our group of people, maybe 5 or 6 survived. We went around to another place, from one place to the other place.
What was the name of this camp that you had been in?
The name was Zwangsarbeitslager.
What was the exact location? Do you remember?
The exact location was the street was it's called Lima Nova. The house or the street, I don't know what it was called that way. Well, where would I continue? I don't know how we got from one
The
place.
bunkers, from one of these hidden bunkers, these
One
holes.
of these hidden bunkers. We always had a malach around us to save us. We had in one bunker that these bandits came after us. They belonged to an organization called Banderovцы. They came to us, and we have heard before that they are going in the woods. They're looking for Jews that are hiding themselves in the woods. So always if that is behind you, you somehow don't want to believe. You think maybe it's not true, maybe panicky. So we didn't believe. I was in the bunker at that time. My brother was out. All of a sudden, my brother Bail runs over my bunker and screams, "Moshe, these bandits are here. They are coming." We jumped out. I jumped out of this bunker. And we ran away. They came in there to this bunker. We came later in to look whatever they left there. So we wanted to see how they behaved there. We had some food there. They put in gasoline and spoiled it in order that we don't get anything more there. This was the last place that I left my tefillin. After this, I didn't have no more tefillin. But I found tefillin in another place. At that time, somebody else was with us from another bunker. So he managed to bring us from this bunker to another bunker. Till the Russians came in, and this is how we...
What was that like? When they came, what was it like for you?
Well, it was like Melech HaMashiach. Going out of the woods, but still getting together, knowing that we don't have anybody. Everybody was dead.
How did you find that out?
They burned the houses destroyed. There was nothing left there. And what we did, we got together, people together, and we managed to get a little place and make a little shul to daven. We still go the same way. And moved over to Drahovich because these Russians, instead of seeing these few dozen broken Jews that they came out of the woods and giving some help and giving some food, and maybe to make them to live like people, they took them right away to their armies. And the Germans have still we've been liberated in '44. The war was still going on strongly. So they.
What point in '44 was this? What point?
1944, we've been liberated in August, and it still was a few months, the war was still going on until May. So they took all these people that survived these bunkers and Hitler's, all these young people, they took them, and they sent them to pick up the mines that the Germans left, and most of them have been killed. And I managed to get a referral from the army because as I said, we had a little factory and I knew how to work. And with a lot of mazel to it, as I said, and I survived.
Did anybody ever give you any advice along the way? Anybody close to you that you had worked with in the running, when you were in the bunkers? How did you know how to escape, where to go?
Well, you asked me for the Belzer Rebbe, that I believe till the very last day, and I still do today. He made a statement after the war. He survived the Rebbe. He said whoever survived had a malach next to him all the time, watching him and doing him. And I could, if I would go into these details, which if I tried to remind myself, I could see this malach, living malach. On one bunker we had somebody coming over, and he took us to the other bunker. In the other bunker somebody else came overnight. He took us to the next bunker. If this guy wouldn't come here, the other guy wouldn't come here, we would be stuck in this way and the other way, and killed by this Banderovs.
Did you ever return to your hometown? To the house?
To the house right away, because these bunkers have been in the Carpathian Mountains. And after these Carpathian Mountains, after we've been liberated by the Russians, we came out and we found nothing.
Was your house still there?
But I tried to get a job, an important job by the Russians, in order to save myself from going to the army. And this is what by another malach. by another Malach that saved me that way. Would I have gone with them? Would I have gone to the Russian army? I wouldn't be here anymore. So me and Bale somehow managed to live through the war with a lot of luck and a lot of mazel and a lot of brachos from all the reps. Baruch Hashem for that.
So where did you go after this?
Where I did go
After returning home.
after
the house.
returning home. We lived through these few months. We lived under the Russians. In other words, the few months till the war finished, the few months till May, between
What happened to the Yiddishkeit?
Between our liberation. Yiddishkeit, we opened up a little shul. As a matter of fact, we find a shul in Drahovich, which is the next city to us, that was not touched by the Germans. It's an amazing, unbelievable thing. The shul is called Zelig Lotabach Skills. This was standing after the war. It was also an alley hidden. And we came in there had been tables and sfurim, shederim. It's unbelievable. So the Germans didn't break in there. Why, I don't know. So me and some other people, Rabbi Lando was older than me. He also survived, and he was in charge of the Jews that came back to these towns. We tried to make a minyan. We had Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur because till May, between August and May, they had other high holidays. We davened together. We tried not to be Machal Shabbos by the Russians. You know, Machal Shabbos, as I translated, not to work on Shabbos by the Russians, which was very, very hard. We tried the best. I cannot recall that I actually, maybe once or twice, I don't remember. We tried not to. And then after the in Drahovich, the Russians announced whoever was Polish background or Polish citizens could go back to Poland. They wanted to get rid of the Poles. It's now Ukraine, and they want, so they took us Jews as Poles. And this was another miracle. Why did they take us as Poles? They could take us as well as Ukrainians, because we had managed to be registered as Jews. I had every day I had these not to go to the Russian army. This was given only, these papers had been given month by month by month. The war was going very, very tough, very tough. So I was free, and from this month to this month, from this month to this month. So it was not easy. So I was not at ease saying that I'm safe, I'll survive. But also the Malach and Mazel helped me that I survived, and then we went to Poland. We went to Poland. I was going to Boryslaw and Lignitz with the Polish transport. They put in long cars. They put in all the peasants there. All the Poles. This the Poles did already. They put in all the peasants and the Poles and some Jews that have been registered as Jews. We mixed us up together with the Poles. We've been going in these trains for a long, long time, maybe for weeks, because they didn't have places for us. They had the Germans out of Western Poland, sent the Poles in there. So we've been among them. We came to a city by the name Lignitz. I still have a Sefer Torah with me all the time, here and there. Well, I didn't have it in the camp, let's put it this way. I had a Sefer Torah with me, and I put it on in a private house, and we started a minyan again in Lignitz. Then from Lignitz, I managed to go to Boryslaw, which is another town not far away from Lignitz, and there was already an organization from Poyal, Giddish Yisrael, came Jews from Russia. I was not the only one. I was not pointed out. There had been more religious Jews that came from all over. And we started a Jewish life there. We didn't work there in Poland. We didn't work, but we started a Jewish life. And the Bricha, which was an organization from the Zionist movement, started to gather Jews to go to Palestine.
What were your plans?
Palestine was not Palestine then. The English have been there.
What were your plans at that point for the future?
Well, I figured I'll go to. We thought to go to Israel. There was no Israel. Palestine. We'll go to We're talking in 45 and 45 into 46. We think, but in the meantime, in order to get there, they couldn't do anything in Poland. The Russian overseeing it. You had to go to the Americans again. You had to go to Germany. We smuggled the borders. We came to Germany. We came to a DP camp, and there I found my wife.
What was the name of the camp?
Orinman, the Donna, was was the city, and the camp was name was Sedan Kaserne.
And when did you arrive there?
Arrived there, well, I would say, in the beginning probably of 46 or something. After dates, I hardly remember dates.
How did you meet your wife?
How did I meet my wife? My wife I knew very well from, because they lived across the street, as I mentioned before. But the same token, me being a Hasidic bucher, in the home from a more modern family, we didn't mingle. I didn't mingle with girls. But I knew such a girl exists there and there. When we have been in Drahovich, when I needed to be safe from the Russian army, not to go to the Russian, they lived in Drahovich already. I got myself a job in Drahovich. They have been neighbors. I used to come into their house. My mother put in Friday night, she put in candles. This is something that was out to see if somebody puts candles on the table, who saw that for years, being in the bunkers and in lager, in camp. So somehow we got to know each other. But she was still with her mother, and we did not be parted. In other words, she came to be parted, and I went to Boryslaw, and I went to Lignitz. She was still with her mother in Lignitz, and I left Lignitz and went to Boryslaw. And then when we all went to Germany, she went another transport to Germany, and I went later on. She is there. So I came to Germany. I asked, where is Mrs. So-and-so with her daughter? So I came there. And we started to think of Tachlis, to building a family. Baruch Hashem, we did build a nice family. We married there in camp. Camp life, TP camp life, it was free. The Americans, UNRWA, gave us support. Not too much, not too bad. According to whatever we had before, this was a paradise. This mother made us a chasana, which for them, I'm the chusen. I went out to the German peasants and bought some fish for the chasana. And somehow I think I had a suit. A lot of people didn't have suits to get married. But I had a suit. Her mother got a dress, I think. I cannot recall. Maybe she remembers better. So many years. So we married in Germany.
Can you tell us her name? Could you tell us her name? Your wife's name?
Frieda Hammerman by maiden name, and Bergman now. She had relatives here in the United States, and I had in mind to go to Israel, or to heaven, that I didn't have anybody in the United States. Why Israel? Why? We've been a little patriotic too after all this. So the family, thanks to them, they said, I'll always give you. There was an uncle, Nathan, that he had an old uncle that he was from the first one. They came here to America on turn of the century, this Uncle Nathan. This Uncle Nathan insisted first come to America. If you wouldn't find a job here, if you wouldn't be happy, he was a very good man. If you wouldn't be happy, I will give you car fare, go back to Palestine or to Israel. First come here.